Hi everyone, and welcome back to Lavender Cottage Fibre Arts podcast. This is our episode number 5, and before we get into the podcast, we would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands on which we're recording today, which is the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin nation, and extend our respect to their elders past, present and emerging, as well as any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander people who are watching this podcast today. So my name is Anna.
And I'm Pia.
And we are twin sisters from Melbourne in Australia, and this is our podcast where we talk about all things fibre arts, which is mostly knitting and crochet. And I think this episode is all knitting and crochet, I think.
Yes.
But sometimes a few other like embroidery, weaving, bit of sewing thrown in there. But I think, today's just all knitting and crochet. So, I think let's just jump straight into it.
Mm-hmm. Alright, so the first section of our podcast is called Hot Off the Hooks or Hot Off the Needles, and this is where we talk about our most recent finished objects. So I just have one for today, and I think it technically qualifies for Hot Off the Needles because I have actually taken it off, like I've bound off and taken it off the needles, but as you can see I still do have a little bit of work to do for sewing in all the ends, but this is my wavy blanket. The wavy rainbow blanket, which I kind of was calling Rainbow Ripple. And
I love
is that
it.
Yeah, that is the right side that I'm showing you
It's
guys.
so nice. And I guess like you can almost see the full size of it in the frame there. So it sort of, I guess, goes maybe more this way, does it? I guess like you can kind of have it either way.
Either way. I feel like it has a bit of a kind of like maybe 70s kind of like tie-dye kind of vibe to it.
It's 70s, but in a good way.
Yeah. So this was using the wavy blanket pattern from the Knitomatic website, and the yarn is the Hobbii 8/4 fingering weight rainbow cotton yarn. I knit it on 4mm needle, so it does have, I don't know if you can really see, like it does have a bit of a sort of like open texture to the fabric, so it is quite a light blanket, so nice for summer, and it's a non-mercerized cotton. Feels very soft. Yeah, it feels very, very nice. That one's
just have to weave
almost finished.
And did you say you were thinking to put either some tassels or pom-poms just on the corners, or?
Yeah, I might, because I've got quite a lot of yarn left over still, so I think I will be able to have a go at making either a tassel or a pom-pom, maybe just using like, because I thought it would be quite look quite cool to have sort of like one thread from each colour in either a tassel or a pom-pom, to make kind of like a rainbow tassel or pom-pom to put on the corners, I guess, because the like edge of it is like a wave kind of thing. It's probably not really hard to attach like and if you did attach something to the ends, it's going to pull them into like a bit of a corner rather than just the wave kind of shape.
Yeah, that's true.
But so I think I'll just have a go at making a little pom-pom or tassel and just see how it looks. And then if I decide not to do that, then I don't have to do that. So that's that. And I would say this pattern was like, I thought this pattern was a pretty easy pattern. So it's an 8-row repeat, and most of the rows, all of the rows except for row number 3 are just knit in garter stitch, so it's all just knit. And then the pattern row, which is what kind of pulls it into the ups and downs of the waves, is just either knit 2 together or knit front and back. So I think I guess to increase you knit front and back, and then so to make it go up, and then to pull it back down is the knit 2 together for the decreases, and you just sort of alternate 10 increases, 10 decreases, etc. the whole way across, and just alternating that the whole way across. So it's pretty easy to follow pattern. I really enjoyed knitting this, and there's like really fun kind of colours, and
I feel like you could do this in like, you could do like a more neutrally leaning one, or like all blues, or like it doesn't have to be like a sort of a loud rainbow.
No, and I did see on Ravelry as well, like some people have done sort of like a stripe pattern like what I've done, like changing the colour every 8 rows. But then I think there were also ones that I saw on Ravelry where they've just used like a variegated yarn or like a colour changing yarn, and just use the same yarn the whole way through. So it doesn't necessarily have to be kind of like a stripe. And I guess you could also, that would be another sort of variation you could do if you didn't want to have like as many times to change over the yarn, that you could do. Like I just did each colour for 8 rows because that was kind of the repeat of the pattern, but you could always do like 16 or 24, like any multiple of 8 rows for each colour if you wanted to have sort of wider stripes instead of having the sort of like multiple repeats of narrow stripes if you wanted to do, which is kind of what I did with the I've shown in previous episodes the zigzag or chevron blanket that I did just one repeat of the rainbow but with much wider stripes. So yeah.
Cool.
So that's me done for hot off the hooks.
Cool. So I have a couple of things. I think I've got 7 finished objects, but a lot of them are pretty small. So it's not maybe as impressive as it sounds. So I'll start with some socks. So I've got one that was a whip in our last episode and is now finished, and then I have 2 other pairs of socks that I have also knit since our last episode. So I'll start with these ones first. So these are the Hermione's Everyday Sock, which is a free pattern on Ravelry, which is by Erica Luda, and the yarn I use is from an Etsy seller called Ruffles Crochet Craft, I believe is her Etsy shop name, and on Instagram she's just Ruffles Yarn. And hopefully you can kind of see a little bit of the sort of texture pattern that's on the leg and the top of the foot. It's pretty easy, like it's just a combination of knits and purls, and I feel like it was a good, like it's a subtle texture, like it doesn't sort of take over, because I feel like sometimes if you do something like really textured also with like a speckled or variegated yarn, they can kind of be in competition a bit with each other. But I felt like this was a good pattern that both of them kind of get a chance to stand out. So that was that one, the Hermione's Everyday Sock. So the next pair of socks that I knit are called my Sandy socks, and I think maybe Pia will tell us a little bit about how the Sandy sock came about. Would you like?
So I can't remember which episode. It was probably in our first episode we introduced our other honorary members of the Lavender Cottage
Craft supervisors.
Yes, the other members of the Lavender Cottage Fibre Arts podcast team, which is my 2 greyhounds, Suzie and Sandy. Unfortunately, a couple of weeks ago, Sandy made her journey across the Rainbow Bridge. She passed away, just sort of more or less from old age. It was very peaceful. And she was sort of comfortable and wasn't suffering at the end. So I think that's really all anyone who's a pet owner or a dog owner can really hope for. But obviously it's still very sad, and we miss her a lot. I miss her. I think about her all the time. But But so we have our special Sandy socks.
So these are the socks, and so purple was Sandy's like signature colour. So Sandy always wore purple, like purple jackets, purple like pajamas, collar, purple pajamas, and Suzie's signature colour is pink. But the reason that I'm calling these my Sandy socks is not just because they're purple, but also, so I had started knitting these socks I think on the Monday of that week, and then it was on the Tuesday that Sandy, like her health kind of just deteriorated all of a sudden, and Pia took her to the vet on Wednesday morning, and the vet basically let her know that it was time to say goodbye. So he gave Sandy some pain relief, and then she came home, and I left work early that day to come here and spend the rest of the day with Pia and Sandy and Suzie. And I basically knit most of the second sock of this pair on that Wednesday afternoon, just like sitting next to Sandy on the couch knitting. So I feel like it's a nice, like in a way it was an awful day, but it's nice to have that memory of
Yeah, just spending her kind of last moments was just being comfortable on the couch, getting cuddles and
getting
spending
pats,
time
and
with
spending
her,
time with her mum and her auntie. Yeah, and I actually kind of thought about this. It made me think of, I think, Ali, who is the Little Drops of Wonderful podcast. She was a few episodes ago talking about these socks that she's calling, I think, her dad's Cornwall socks. She had a similar experience. She was knitting a pair of socks when her dad's health like really deteriorated, and I think she put the socks away and didn't finish them, and thought, I don't want to see these ever again, because it was just an awful time. But then she decided to actually finish them and have that sort of, like, it is a painful memory, but that's I guess how you know that you still feel connected to someone that you loved, is that it does hurt when you think about them. So these socks, they're my Sandy socks. I should actually give a bit of information about the socks, I guess, as well. So it's just a plain vanilla sock. I used, it has a 2x2 rib on the cuff, and I did 15 rounds for the cuff. I did a 64 stitch cast on, and I got 45 rounds for the leg. The yarn is, the main colour is called Lavender Fields from NNK Yarns, who's on Etsy. She's an Australian indie yarn dyer. And I don't know if you can see, but this is her sparkle. Oh yeah, I think you can. Her sparkle sock base. So it's got a little bit of silver stellina in it. And then the contrast colour was a 20 gram mini that I got in that Ruffles yarn mystery bag. And I kind of wanted to see, because I had a 50 gram skein of the Lavender Fields and then obviously the 20 gram mini. I just kind of wanted to see how far can I knit with a sock with a 50 gram main colour and a 20 gram mini, because I think some sock yarns, I mean, a lot of them come in 100 gram skeins, but some of them are also available in 50 gram skeins. So I feel like if I can get a pair of socks out of a 50 gram skein, then obviously that's cheaper for me, and then I also don't end up with lots of leftover yarn. So I was able to get a 15 round cuff and a 45 round leg, and then for the length of my foot, and a 64 stitch cast on out of the 50 gram and the 20 gram. And I ended up with a teeny tiny bit of leftover yarn, which I will show very shortly what I did with that. So one more pair of socks. So let me take these Sandy socks off the blocker to show you. I just really love the combination of purple and green. I think.
Well, I guess it's like a field of lavender, isn't it?
Yeah, and that Lavender Fields does have the sort of green speckles in it as well. So this last pair of socks that I knitted is another vanilla sock. And if you have watched our last episode, I think you might recognise the yarn.
Oh, from your knitted t-shirt that you were wearing.
Yeah, I suppose.
Were you wearing that in the last one, or you just showed it?
No, I think I was wearing it.
Yes,
Yeah. It was my FO in our last episode. Sorry, I'll just get it on the blocker for display purposes. So I'm actually calling these socks, they're just another vanilla sock, but I feel like if it's just a vanilla sock, I can give it like a special
cool
name.
Yeah,
those are my Sandy socks. And these are actually going to be my Heart Eyes for Suzie socks, because the yarn is the main colour is from Skip Row Bianco, which is another Australian indie dyer, and the colourway is called Heart Eyes. So that was the leftover. I had about 80 grams left after I finished my t-shirt, and then the contrast one on this one is a mini that I got from another Etsy seller called Cheshire Hand Dyed Yarn. Just a vanilla sock. So this one I did 20 rounds for the cuff, but I also did the 2x2 ribbing, and I did 60 rounds for the leg, and then just the standard heel flap and gusset and a wedge toe. But so the reason these are called Heart Eyes for Suzie, so obviously Heart Eyes is the name of the colorway of this, and they are pink. And as I said, Suzie, who is Pia's other greyhound, our other craft supervisor, she loves
sleeping on the job right now.
Yeah, She loves pink. She loves to wear pink, and I get heart eyes whenever I see Suzie. So these are my... I have heart eyes for Suzie, so these are my heart eyes for Suzie socks.
Yeah. Just in case anyone thinks I'm one of those people who makes their dogs wear silly costumes, I'm not. Just because greyhounds have very low amount of body fat percentage, and their fur is also quite thin, they are very sensitive to the cold, so they actually do need to wear
like a jumper.
In winter they do need to wear like a jacket.
Yeah.
So it's for practical purposes, but also it does have some aesthetic purpose, I guess, because most of their jackets are like pink or purple or flowers and things like that.
Yeah. So my FO parade continues. So the next thing I did was, this is another sort of using up leftovers type thing. I knit a bunch of 3 of them actually, yarn cozies, and this is a pattern, well, the pattern that I got was from Nitty Natty. And so I just knit them out of leftover sock yarn. So this one was, it's like she calls it the mock cable one. And I knit that using the leftovers from my Hermione Everyday sock. Mm-hmm. This is just the standard ribbed one. And these first 2 are both for a 100-gram cake. And this was the leftover, or some of the leftover yarn from the first pair of socks that I knit that I showed in a previous episode. And then this last one, I managed to squeeze this is a cozy for a 20-gram mini that's been caked up. So I managed to squeeze that out of the leftover I had from the sandy socks. So I also have a sandy yarn cozy. Nice. But I really was scraping the bottom of the barrel. I almost didn't have enough for the I-cord bind off, so I had to I had woven in the ends on the sock, trim them off, and then actually spit splice the yarn together to extend it, and I just had enough, so that's all good. So for anyone who is not familiar with what a yarn cozy is, I suppose I do have a cake of yarn here. It's just basically a sleeve that you put around a cake of yarn, and it just kind of keeps it contained in a project bag, and you do then have to pull from the center of the cake, but that's fine if you wind it into a center pull ball, and then sort of the friction of the yarn of the cozy with the friction of the actual cake of yarn basically means that it all stays until the very end, and it basically kind of just slowly collapses. So I think if you're doing color work or anything like that, it's just a good way that you can kind of keep your project bag organized and things aren't getting sort of all tangled together. And I feel it just is a good project, I think, if you've got small amounts of yarn left at the end of the project. I can't remember exactly how much yarn I used for each one, but I think the mock cable one definitely used a little bit more yarn. I think maybe about 15 grams, and then this one, the ribbed one, about 10 grams, and I think for this 20-gram mini one, about 5 grams.
So really just the scraps that you've got left over.
Yeah, I feel it's a really good sort of stash buster, sort of scrappy project to do. So yeah, I'll probably make more of them in the future at some point, and they knit up really quickly. I could knit one of these in I don't know, maybe a weekend, and the 20-gram one I could knit that in I don't know, 2 hours or something like that. So good quick project to use up scraps. And then my very last FO, which is kind of an FO but kind of not, is a t-shirt. So the pattern is the So Summer shirt by Jessie May Designs, which was the same pattern as the last t-shirt that I made, but I did this with the last one I did with the folded hem and neckline and sleeve option, and this one I did with the ribbed option. So the reason is kind of my stupidity, or maybe not stupidity, but just, I don't know, being a novice, I guess, that is not a complete FO, is I thought I bound off the neck as loosely as I possibly could. I even used a bigger size of needles, but it's still not stretchy enough, so I can't actually get it on. So I'm gonna
try it on. It was kind of on the crown of it. That's quite funny. And so she walked in with this thing on the crown, and then her face was just covered like that.
So yeah, I think I'm obviously not. I think I'm going to have to. I am going to have to unpick the bind off and then do a different bind off I have done on a dish towel before the Elizabeth Zimmerman bind off, which I think is a bit more stretchy, but it's a sewn bind off. So I think I just was a bit lazy to do that. But I might also look up some other like stretchy bind offs. And if anyone has a recommendation of a good stretchy bind off for a neckline, I definitely would be appreciative.
Leave it in the comments
of any suggestions. But so, I'm kind of calling it finished because it technically is finished, but it's just not wearable.
Unless you have a very small head.
My head's not small enough. And so the yarn, I should say, is from Rainbows and Sprinkles. She is an Australian yarn dyer who I think is based in Western Australia. And the colourway is called Sea Foam. I don't think... She seems to not really, like, bring colours back. Or if she does, she doesn't do it very often. Like, it seems like she'll have a collection and then once it's sold out, it's like she doesn't have it anymore. Yeah. So I don't think she has this colourway anymore.
It's pretty.
I did use helical knitting on the body, the part that's knitted in the round, just to break up. So one of the skeins I had a lot more of those darker purple speckles than the other. So I just wanted to kind of distribute them a bit more evenly. So I used helical knitting kind of, up until, and it's knit from the, I should say it's a bottom up construction, until you split for the front and back. And then I obviously was knitting flat, so I couldn't do helical knitting anymore. So it has kind of, you can definitely see that it's changed the way the colour pulls, but I don't think it doesn't bother me. Like, I think it's fine the way it is. And I'm mainly happy that darker purple is like evenly distributed. And I mean, obviously, kind of I don't know if you can see from here, but you can see like the pooling, the way the colour has pulled on the ribbing on the bottom and on the sleeves is quite similar, but then it's very different to how the colour has pulled on the neckband. And it's just because it's like a different stitch count. Like there's nothing you can really do about that. So, but I'm happy with how it is. And I really do like I said, I love the combo of purple and green. Yeah. So,
You can wear it with these.
Well, actually, so I had 3 skeins of this yarn and I haven't actually even used 2 skeins yet. Actually, that does really go.
Yeah, I think that goes.
So I've still got 1 full skein and about...
So you could actually knit a matching pair of socks.
And about 15 grams. So I think I've got about 115 grams. So I'm not 100% sure whether I'll use that last skein to knit a pair of socks or whether I would just like de-stash it. I'm not too sure.
Yeah.
Or maybe you would like it for a pair of socks. I don't know. Anyways, so yes, that is my final FO for this episode. So I guess we can update, because we both have FOs.
Yes.
We can update our Project Janathon. So Project Janathon is just like a fun like game. It's nothing serious. But me and Pia are both trying to knit a marathon's worth of yarn. Or crochet. Knit or crochet. So that is 42,195 meters for anyone who is not familiar. So I have knit, since our previous episode, I've knit an extra 1,790 meters, and I had previously done 6,971. So that takes me to 8,761 meters, which is 20.7% of a marathon.
Wow. I'm very far behind, but so this...
but you're working on like mostly big projects.
Yeah,
so I feel like you jump less often, but when you do, it goes up by a lot.
Yeah. So this blanket, just based on the weight of it and the weight of the yarn on the website, we just did a bit of maths, was 1,564 meters.
Yes.
So that takes me up to, what am I up to? About 2,000. So I'm almost at 3 kilometers of yarn. So about 7.
Because you had 1350 before. Yep.
I think it was actually 1315. I think.
Oh, 15.
Yeah, but
you can have an extra 35 meters for free.
Doesn't matter. I'm almost at 3 kilometers of yarn, so about 7%. So I've got a bit of catching up to do.
But you will. You'll see Pia's catching up in our next section. So I think that is the end of our hot off the hooks, hot off the needle section.
Yep.
So now we can talk about our whips. All right, now it's time to whip it good. So whip it good is our section where we talk about our whips, which is our work in progress. So I actually only have 1 whip to share today.
And so do I.
I do have more whips. Like on the needles on the hooks on the go, but I just haven't made any significant progress that I felt it was like worthwhile to kind of share. So this whip is a new whip, and it's another sock. I've basically, like, on the train I can knit a pair of socks in about a week, sometimes a week and a half, I guess. And at the moment actually there's a lot of like issues on my train line, so it sometimes means that I get like a lot more knitting time.
Well, that's like a positive like way to look at the like glass half full thing.
Yeah, I guess like
most
I
people
feel
are
like
like, this train's running late or whatever, and then you're just like, more time for knitting.
I feel like if you knit or crochet, you can never be like annoyed about things being delayed, because you're just like, oh well, I'll just keep knitting. So yeah, this is another sock. The pattern is called Rye Light, and it's from Tin Can Knits. It's basically like a vanilla sock, but it's got this panel with sort of garter ridges down the middle. Oh yeah, maybe that is a bit better. And the wool, I actually got it last weekend. We went to the Yarra Valley Wool and Craft Show, I think is the official name of it, in Muralbark. So this wool is from Wool and Works, and Chloe is an Australian, again, indie yarn dyer. And this colourway, I don't know if it might be easier to see in the cake, or I might even just put a photo
a picture
of the skein as well on the side. So this colourway was called Fountain Forest, and it's just her sock yarn base, and the contrast colour is just a mini that I had in a sock set from Hugh Loco, but I just thought it's sort of like this muted dark blue. I thought it went really well with the, because the colours in this sock I feel is sort of like, I would describe it as sort of like a muted rainbow kind of thing, which is quite nice. It's not kind of my typical colour palette, like I tend to go for more like pinks and purples, but excuse me, yeah, I do quite like this colour. So I finished the first sock, and I have started this morning. I did a walk for Parkinson's disease awareness, and I cast on the sock while I was on my on the tram on the way to the walk, and then this is how much I knit while I was on the walk. So yeah, so that is my whip of the day.
Excellent. So this is one that you, if you've seen any of our previous episodes, you definitely will have seen before, which is the Happy Valley Baby Afghan from Lion brand. It's just a free pattern on their website, and I'm knitting it using the ice cream yarn, which is just like an acrylic yarn for baby projects. I guess you could use it for other things, but I think that's what it's intended for, is baby projects. So I am getting close to being finished with this one. I'm planning to do 3 cycles of the colours. So I think
You've done all the green.
I think last episode I was about halfway through this green row. And so since then I have finished off that green row, and I've done the first square of the yellow row, and this will be the last yellow row. And then after this yellow row, I've just got the pink row.
And then the sides.
And then the sides. Because so this is like a mitre square construction. So each square is knit separately. And then which I haven't done this before. I will have to, look at the pattern and that. Because I guess for this, like, once you know how to knit the mitre square, you don't really need to look at the pattern all the time.
It's more just for the colours suggestions.
Yeah, but then you knit like it kind of fell down. A triangle, kind of along the sides to kind of fill in the sides, so the sides are like straight. So yeah, that's what I've got left to go on this one. Each square probably takes about half an hour, so it will take me another few weeks, I think, to finish this,
and then put a backing on it and stuff.
Either put a backing on it, also in this mess, deal with all the ends.
Yeah, I think if I were you, I would just put a backing on it. I don't know, maybe that's just me being lazy.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking that would make it sort of nice and quite sort of soft and warm to put maybe like a polar fleece type.
Yeah.
Or like what's that minky fabric? I don't know if that would really go. I also have never like sewed like knitted fabric to another fabric as well. So
that's
I guess
true.
Yeah, if anyone has any kind of tips or
to look into,
tips or any good tutorials and stuff to look at for that, let us know. But yeah, so that's my whip.
Cool.
All right, so now it's time for dream weaving, which is the last segment of our podcast. And this is where we talk about any projects that are kind of in the works. Sorry, not like in the works as in progress, but in the queue, I guess, of things that we want to work on. And also talk about any recent fibre arts related purchases that we've made as well. So I have something here which you may recognize from probably like months ago, I think, when I introduced this as a whip. So this is what I've done so far on the Hue Shift Afghan, which is from the Knit Picks website, and that's using their Brava Sport, which is an acrylic yarn. So it's another miter square construction blanket, and my dream weaving goal is to get back into this because I haven't touched it for a very long time.
Just sort of get it out of hibernation.
Yeah, kind of revive this, and because it's, so I've obviously done 15 squares and there's 100 squares in total, so I've got a long way to go. So yeah, it would be good to get this one, and I know that this is going to be a long-term project, so that's fine. I'm not under any illusions that I'm going to finish it, in a month or whatever.
You might.
If I quit my job and just knit all day. Tempting. But yeah, so that's something that I would definitely like to focus on. And I also would like to pick back up, I haven't got it here today to show, but my embroidery that I started on, I think I showed in one of the previous episodes, of Starry Nights embroidery, would be good to, go back to that one. I guess the other thing that I would like to think about sometime in the next few months, that I'll have to look into it and find a date and book in, but I really want to go back to the Art Weaver studio in Malmesbury and do another weaving session with Heather. I really I really enjoyed that, and I kind of have some ideas of things that I would like to do, so yeah, that would be kind of my goals at the moment.
I think the Tea Time Yarn Retreats in Dalesford is opening in April, I think, and she is doing some classes as well, so that did kind of cross my mind. Could we do like a combo weekend of like doing the Friday with Heather and the Saturday at the Tea Time or something like that?
That would be a good idea, because then I guess that would make it a bit more affordable to just go out for one weekend.
I have to look into like what specific
pay for accommodation
classes, because I think her schedule at the moment is just like once a month she's doing a class, and it's a different one every month, so I guess we'd have to look into, like, because I mean some of them, I don't know, one was like crochet for beginners or something like that, which for me personally, like, I would probably not get that much out of a workshop like that, but others were like yarn dyeing, and there was one actually that was like finishing techniques. That's something that I would really be interested in, because I feel like sometimes you, like, if the finishing is a bit sloppy, like it
can ruin the whole thing.
Like if you put in like 50-60 hours of work on a sweater or something like that, and then
want to do a real rush job at the end to finish it off.
So I think that would be something that I'd be
I suppose that's the thing with workshops. You can either look for something that is, a skill that you already have and you want to like improve it and work on, particular aspects or whatever, but I think it is also fun to just pick something that's a bit left field, like yarn dyeing, for example.
Like I think yarn dyeing is something that you sort of, in your dreams, you would dye your own yarn, but like the sort of practical considerations
to get established with all the just required equipment and materials.
But I think that is something that I would like to do, is just like a workshop based thing, and then I can say I have like this really special skein of yarn that I dyed myself, and then just pick like a really special
well, I mean,
project.
I guess it's kind of similar like with weaving. Like I enjoyed going to Heather's studio, but I guess just from like a practical point of view, I don't have the space, and I wouldn't have enough time to dedicate to justify having your own kind of weaving studio set up at home. But it is really nice to just be able to do it.
It's like a retirement pipe dream. Cool. So my dream weaving is a bit more of like I don't want to say haul, but like a few things that I purchased. So if looking at new purchases isn't for you, totally understand if you click out of the video. But if you do want to see things that I bought, then I guess stick around. No, you go for it. So yeah, like I said, last weekend we went to the Yarra Valley Wool and Craft show, and I just bought a few skeins of sock yarn there. One of them was actually, like I said, the Fountain Forest from Woolen Works that I I've already caked that up and started using it. So I don't have a skein of that to show you, obviously. But then I bought 5 others. So first up, I bought 2 skeins from Melbourne City Dye Works, which is obviously a Melbourne-based dyer. And so this first one is called Pop Art. So it's sort of like a off-white with these sort of like very bright, sort of like turquoise, bright pink, yellow little speckles on this sort of off-white base. And then the second one, I feel like I could potentially use these together because this one's called Vienna, and this is kind of similar tones of the speckles, but on a sort of a light grey base. So yeah, I actually feel like these could potentially work quite well together in a project if I wanted to combine them. And then the next 2 skeins I bought were from Roz from Passioned Flower. So I do actually have 2 sets of her minis that I bought last year. Her I think she's got 2 sets that are like named after flowers, the Lights and Brights, and I've got those. So I bought 2 skeins of sock yarn. This first one is her lattice sock base, which is 75-25 superwash merino nylon blend. And I should have said actually, so I think the Melbourne City Dye Works, is a 75-25. And this colorway, I think is from, she has like a series of colors like inspired by Willy Wonka and Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. So this one is called You're Turning Violet. So that's that one there. Yep. And then this one is actually one of her flowers. So I do have a mini of this. And this is the Garden Variety Sock, which is an 80-20 superwash merino nylon blend. And this one, the colorway is Fuchsia. And what I was actually thinking for both of these, I think they will coordinate quite well with some of the other colors in her minis. So I was thinking to maybe do like a stripy cuff or something like that, but use the mini, or maybe some stripes on the leg, I'm not too sure. And maybe even do like a couple of the different colors of the minis, but make some socks with these and some of her minis. And then the very last one, so I think this is from Earth Yarns, and I'm pretty sure, I can't remember where they are based, but I think, well, it says it's made in Turkey, but I vaguely recall, I'll put it in the description box, vaguely recall they're like a South African brand, maybe? And it's their unique fingering weight, which is just a 100% superwash merino fingering weight, obviously, and their colors, they don't have names, they just have numbers. I hope that color is kind of showing up. It looks like it might be
it looks a bit
dark, but it's called, the number is 3022.
Oh, that's not even in the thing.
I don't know if kind of, but I think maybe I'll just put a photo. So I don't know if that one I'll use it for a shawl or a pair of socks. I'm not too sure at this stage, but I just bought the 1 skein of each of those. So yes, that's my dream weaving. Another, like, this is just like a very vague plan that I was thinking about that could be cool. I was actually talking to our
these jewel tones are really nice.
Yeah, I really do like. They're sort of like pinky purples. That's just kind of like, well, but for both of us, I guess, our sort of wheelhouse in terms of colours that we like. But I was talking to our mum the other day, and I asked her, because she knits as well, I asked her if she would be interested to do like a family knit along, where I thought it could be fun if all 3 of us, if we knit the same pattern, but we choose like our own colours kind of thing, like a shawl or something. Yeah. I don't know if you would be interested in doing something like that. But that was just like a vague idea.
Yeah, that would be fun.
But I think, so I think that is basically it for the podcast today. Yep. Thank you so much for joining us today. Hopefully you liked some of the things that we had to show, and as always, we are always open to questions, but also comments or suggestions. If you have any patterns that you could recommend for the yarn that we've shown, or like, for example, if you can recommend a super stretchy bind off that I can fit my head through the neck of my top, or if you've got a recommendation for Pia about the backing for her blanket, always love to hear any suggestions that you have.
Definitely. And we've got a slightly different camera set up today as well, so let us know. I feel like the lighting, I don't know if it's a bit of an overcast day
outside
so
today,
we might have to put some photos
might
in.
have to put some photos
in as well, just to see like the colours
true
of everything.
Representation of the colours. But I think that's pretty much all for today. If you liked our podcast and you want to see more episodes, we're aiming for about once a month, but you can feel free to subscribe, and that way you'll see when we next put an episode out. But apart from that, just want to say thank you for joining us today, and until our next video, we wish you happy stitching.
Happy stitching.
Bye.
Bye.